the few brave souls who will share glimpses of their personal joys. We light our chalice as we transition into spiritual part of the service with the words of Ram Dass. The spiritual journey is individual, highly personal. It can't be organized or regulated. It isn't true that everyone should follow one path. Listen to your own path. And now, if you'll join me in renewing our aspiration, which you may love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And now, Annette has a sharing.
Good morning. I have a story for you today. Once upon a time, long ago, when I was this old, my mom and dad joined the Humboldt Unitarian Fellowship. The Universalists came later. Our church was in Eureka. It was white and it was 2 stories high. In Sunday school, we sang songs and heard stories, and at snack time, we ate graham crackers and drank grapefruit juice. There was a very old gentleman named Leon Wagner who taught us songs. When he liked something very much, he would say, "Hear, hear." We sang Doxology, the song that I played for you this morning already, and For the Beauty of the Earth, and Good Morning Daffodils. Every spring, when the daffodils bloomed and the baby lambs were born, we would sing, "Good morning, daffodils, the great big shining sun. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, 'cause springtime has begun." When I was 7, we moved to the Yellow Fellowship on Old Arcata Road. From the windows every spring, we could see the baby lambs and the daffodils, and we sang For the Beauty of the Earth and Good Morning, Daffodils, the great big shining sun. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, 'cause springtime has begun. I loved it. But alas, when I got old, I couldn't remember that 3rd line of the song. So I asked Leon's lovely wife, Jean. "Jean, do you remember that 3rd line of the song?" And she said, "No, I don't. I'm sorry. But maybe Bev Allen does. You can go ask her." So I went and I asked Bev Allen. She said, "No, I'm sorry, Annette. I don't remember it either. But I wrote a history of the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. It's in the library. Maybe you'll find it in there." So I went to the library and I opened up the book. And what was on the first page? The words to Good Morning, Daffodils. It said, "Good morning, daffodils, the great big shining sun has called to you to come and show that springtime has begun." But where was the music? I went to Google And I Googled and I Googled and I Googled. And finally, I found it in the Beacon Song and Service book. I ordered it. It came. I ran with it to the piano. Good morning, daffodils. The great big shining sun has called to you to come and show that springtime has begun. That wasn't the song I learned. I suddenly realized that I knew that melody from somewhere that Leon had taught us. He stole it from Handel's Messiah. There's a song in it called "He Shall Feed His Flock Like a Shepherd." Leon put that tune together with the words, and this is what happened. Good morning, daffodils, the great big shining sun has called to you to come and show that springtime has begun. Yay! So, there are 3 verses to Good Morning, Daffodils. Scarlett is going to put the words up on the screen, and we can sing all 3 verses together. Good morning, daffodils, the great big shining sun has called to you to come and show that springtime has begun. Good morning, daffodils, the gently falling rain has crept down through the soft brown earth to waken you again. Good morning, daffodils, the happy thrushes sing. Come up, and tell the world that it is really spring. So, that is the end of my childhood story. I was 2 when my parents joined. So, the fellowship has been a big part of my grown-up story too. For 64 years, our ministers and congregation have taught me, solaced me, and married me twice. They taught and blessed and married my children, but it's been a special privilege to be your pianist and choose music that I hope will have you loving and remembering the voices of all of us when you are older. I still love to hear For the Beauty of the Earth, and when I play it, I remember the voices for when I was your age. One of those voices is Leon Wagner. Hear, hear. The end.
And now we come to this point in this service of sharing our joys and sorrows. And keep sending them to me. From Scarlett Trippsmith. Oh, FYI, the live stream isn't working today. She's going to record it and post it after the service. From Sue Mossman. Happy 97th birthday to Marianne Pennycamp.
Wow.
Woo, woo, woo. And this coming Wednesday, happy anniversary to Greg and Debbie. Pebbles. And from her, Annette, Loved your story, and music made our day. Leon would have loved it too. From Scarlett, happy birthday to Deborah Kaufman. And I don't have any other ones in the chat right now. So I will drop this final pebble for all of the joys and sorrows here on this Zoom call, yet kept in your hearts. Leah Morris has blessed us with many songs throughout this our summer. Here is another one.
Who I am today will not be who I am tomorrow, and who I am tomorrow will keep changing every day. And all the things I learned might fill my heart with joy or sorrow, and everything I learned might make me want to change my ways. Oh, there is nothing, no thing that ever stays the same. That is the one thing, one thing that life does guarantee. There is no one on earth, no one who knows what path their life will take, and no one knows what I will see as I keep becoming me. The family you were raised in does not dictate who you marry, and the country you were born in won't decide where you are buried, and all you once believed might leave you stranded on an island where the only way back home is to abandon it as lies. And there is nothing, no thing that ever stays the same. That is the one thing, one thing that life does guarantee. There is no one on earth, no one who knows where their lives will be, what path their life will take, and no one knows what I will see as I keep becoming me, becoming me. I must stay open to the change, curious and free, and always ready to be rearranged. There is nothing that ever stays the same. That is the one thing that life does guarantee. one on earth, no one who knows what course their life will take, and no one knows who I will be as I keep becoming me, as I keep becoming me, as I keep becoming me, as I keep becoming.
Hey, you guys, Leah here. So I knew that some folks are celebrating the theme or the idea of becoming this month. And I sat down, or probably I was walking, and I had this sort of generic idea. I am becoming all that I can be, or something like that. And I thought, that's all right. But nothing else happened with it. Like, it just kind of lost momentum. And then a few days ago, this song just came pouring out. It's definitely autobiographical without being super specific. It talks about some of the experiences that we go through that help us define who we are, to find who we are, to divine who we are. None of that's in the song, but the experiences. I love this Buddhist quote that says, "The foot feels the foot when it touches the ground." And that's what this song is about. It's about the fact that who we are becomes really, truly clear to us in our relationships, in our relationship to the rest of life. So hopefully you'll feel and hear some resonance in the song, and maybe feel free to write in the comments below what you hear or what you feel are some of those deciding moments that have helped you to become who you are. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and just for continuing to support this music. It means a lot to me, and I'm grateful to be able to share with you. Bye.
Good morning. I'm Richard Kossow. Before I start, I want to, Ginger and I want to drop another pebble. I couldn't figure out the chat, but we want to send our blessings and yours to Helen Batchelor this morning. Helen's moving closer to the end of her life's journey. So this is my story. I fondly remember the church of my childhood. We lived in a rural area just south of Minneapolis. Churches and the school anchored the social life of our community. Oak Grove Presbyterian was a consciously plain Calvinist congregation, originally a missionary church to the Santee Dakota, until they were forcibly removed from Minnesota in the 1860s. The elders of the church were local businessmen and prosperous farmers. The men and women of the church were an extended family to me, watching over me till I left Bloomington to go to the university. I took very well to the religious practices of this community, and I attended communicants class and joined the church when I was 12, as did my whole Sunday school cohort. Then the skepticism began to set in, and I gradually slid over the line into non-belief. I stayed with the church socially and musically, but rejected it theologically. I was pretty much unchurched and indifferent until I was 23. I was in my last year of law school, married with 2 little boys. We lived in cramped married student housing on the GI Bill. That summer, one of my professors went traveling and asked us to live in their house and care for their plants and dogs. And by the way, you might check out our church. It was First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. We did check it out and fell in love with it right away. Humanism, the shared insights of all world religions, no magical thinking. May love be the doctrine of this church, the search for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. Soon we did what all good congregants do, we volunteered. In our case, it was the 7th grade church school curriculum by Sophia Faz, the church across the street. It was fun, but junior high wasn't quite right for us. And then the RE director said that the high school LRY group needed advisors. That was a major fork in our life. After a year or so with the local group, we were asked to be the advisors to the North Star Federation, serving all the local UU groups, youth groups in Minnesota and parts of Wisconsin and Dakota. And a few years later, when I was 31, I learned of an open position as executive director of Continental Liberal Religious Youth. I sought and was chosen to fill the position, which involved a resignation from the legal profession and a physical move to the UUA headquarters in Boston. Liberal religious youth to me was the best of Unitarian Universalism. It was worship-centered, it was intimate, authentic, and freewheeling. When I resigned after 3 years, because I believed that the budget supporting my salary and expenses would be better spent financing young people themselves as they developed and executed their own programs in a truly independent youth-run institution. The relationships I formed and the values developed in those UU youth advisory years have prevailed in my life ever since. I'm certainly grateful to that professor who brought the Universalist way to my attention. Sandy Lynn, will you tell us your story now?
There we go. Hi, I am Sandy Lynn, and here is my story for today. It was in the early 80s, during my first year of graduate school at the University of Oregon, when I accidentally became a born-again Christian. And that was odd, because I had been raised in a Unitarian church and had been an atheist since I was 9, when I figured out that the notion of God just didn't make sense to me. So what happened? At the beginning of that first graduate school year, I had met Ron, a fellow math student 1 year ahead of me in our master's program. We had been dating about a month when he told me that he went to church. Okay, I'm thinking. He said it was a relatively new thing for him. Okay, I'm thinking. It's the Conservative Baptist Church in Springfield. Oh, I'm thinking. Okay, this is interesting. I can look at it as an intellectual exercise in learning something entirely new. A long story short, I ended up checking out a Bible from the library, attending church with Ron, including the young adult Sunday school class, and eventually hearing this sermon. You don't have to understand everything now. You just need to say yes. Let Jesus into your heart and he will take it from there. Put Jesus in the driver's seat. Admit that you are in need of his guidance, for you have sinned, and he is pure and can teach you the way to God. All you have to do is say yes. And one day I did. Looking back, I believe that it was a way to feel closer to Ron, but I wouldn't let myself consciously think that at the time. What followed was a year of 1 to 2 hour daily Bible studies, learning Amy Grant and other Christian songs to sing and play my guitar for church services, and at the mission services we did, helping with Sunday school, praying out loud at every meal, even over our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at lunch in front of our fellow non-Baptist grad students, and I got baptized. I was all in. By the end of the school year, we had decided that we wanted to get married. I would move to the Dalles, Oregon, where Ron had accepted a teaching job at a small Bible college, and I would become a good Baptist Christian wife who did not work outside the home. So naturally, at the end of the school year, I gave notice that I was giving up my teaching fellowship for graduate school, and we planned a trip across the country to get permission from his parents. We spent 3 weeks driving east from Eugene, still studying the Bible every day and camping along the way. About 5 days before we made it to Ron's parents' place, we took a 3-day backpack in the northern part of Yellowstone Park we did not see another person for that whole time. On our last night out there, I spent tossing and turning, and I didn't know why. No specific thing was bothering me. I just felt unsettled. Every now and then a thought about God or the future in the Dalles would creep in and just as quickly be swatted away in my mind. I couldn't bring myself at that time to think about the reality of God. That was too big. But I could think about my near future. By morning, I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to move to the Dalles with Ron, and I needed to finish my degree first. Looking back, trying to figure out what happened in the end, I believe there was something about being surrounded by that huge natural beauty in Yellowstone. The gently sloping meadows, the aspen trees, the tiny wildflowers, the various wildlife, and the brilliant stars at night. All of it was what helped me find my way out of the fog that I didn't even realize I was in. I found a way to break this news to Ron. He was disappointed, but I told him that I felt that God had spoken to me through a church service we went the next day, and God had led me to know that I should finish what I started and go back to school in the fall. Who was Ron to argue with God? By the time we came home at the end of the summer, I knew I had to break it off with Ron. He went off to the Dalles, and I finished grad school. My path back to the UU Church in 1998 is another story that involved needing babysitters at the time, but suffice it to say, I am glad to be back.
As we go into the offertory, I'd like to remind everyone that this fellowship is totally supported by its congregants, both financially and with their talents. And this is your opportunity to lend your finances in this endeavor that helps to nourish so many of us to find our own path. Annette, take it away.
Sandy and I have similarities to our story. Here's mine in a poem called Making It to Bombay. My dorm big sister frowns down at me sitting on my unmade bed. She counsels, I always make mine as soon as I wake up, so it's ready to kneel beside and do my devotions. Pressing cards with the 4 spiritual laws on surprised sunbathers in LA's Griffith Park. College chapel 3 times a week. Am I a good enough Christian? I don't yearn to be a missionary or a preacher's pious wife. I even love secular music. Should I go forward during today's altar call in chapel? In August, the Evangelical College president calls. Last-minute scholarships for fall semester on the University of the 7 Seas. Desperate quarters clink to beg mom to make up the difference. I don't know, honey. That's a lot of money for us. But mom, I plead, tears streaming over black phone receiver. I know I'm supposed to go. On board, trapped below decks in bunks with students who didn't need scholarships. They drink, vomit, drink some more. Lisbon, Barcelona, Marseille, Pompeii, Cairo. In each port, a tour to see the sights, and a university gathering, chance to connect with locals, taste the real life of each city. Approaching India, reading the Bhagavad Gita with its somehow familiar stories of a devastating flood and a coat of many colors, nagging internal questions become louder. Invited to a modest apartment in Bombay, I sit on the floor with legs beneath the table, filled with welcome, fragrant flowers, incense, doll. My heart careens around my chest in life-changing epiphany. This Hindu family will not burn in hell, as all those damning chapel speakers insist. Lifelong beliefs catch fire. I burn with fury, fear, and freedom. Demanding questions spark. Is any of my faith worth keeping? The wildfire breaks out. And now we'll hear from Todd Hoberecht.
Well, good morning, everyone. You know, my journey might be a little bit different because mine didn't start out in the UU and it didn't even start out in church. As a young person, I was always very much aware of something that was out there, a divine presence that I felt surrounded me in this world. I really didn't have a name for it. I guess I called it God because I'm an American. And that's the name that floats out there. But it really came to me through a number of ways. One, when I was young, my dad was in the military, and as a family, we'd go skiing in the Alps. And I remember just looking out across that landscape and seeing row after row of mountains. And then after that, we came back to America. We moved to Colorado, and I would sit under the Colorado sky with the stars beaming above me, and I could feel this divine presence, and not just a divine presence, but the love. It felt like I was loved, and all of this was here for me, just for me, because it loved me so much. And we moved to Montana later in life, and after that, and again, walking out in those mountains and along those rivers and streams, that presence was very much with me. When I went into high school, my later years in high school, I had some friends who were part of a church there in town, an evangelical church, and they were also part of theater, and they invited me to come to their church gathering. And as I did, they began talking to me about my own experiences of the divine. And as I began to share with them, they'd say, hey, look, you know what? That lines up with what we believe. And they opened up their Bible and they'd say, see, right here, it says this, and that's what you're talking about. And I went, that does sound like what I'm talking about. And after a while, I began attending the church regularly. I became a Christian. And eventually, I even became an associate pastor at that church and pastored there for almost 20 years, for 19 years. And during that whole time, I found that there was so much that I learned and was taught in that place that agreed with this inner relationship I had with the divine. But at the same time, there were a number of things that were over here on the outside that just could never settle for me. Probably the main one was the issue of hell. I was taught that there were those who accepted Jesus and they would go to heaven, and those who didn't would go to an eternal punishment in hell. And I found in no way could I work out how this divine presence that is love, that is spirit, could ever create a place where people would suffer and be tortured for all eternity. This same God who was supposed to be justice saw it just that someone that he or she loved would be tortured forever. It just never worked for me. And as time went on, I found more and more breaks, more and more places where my journey took a different path in my heart. And you see, for me, it never was about reaching heaven. It was never about reaching a destination. It was about the journey. The journey for me has always been everything. So eventually I stepped away and I left that church. I left much of my faith behind, and I began a new journey of disassembling what I had learned to get back to that divine spark. And in the midst of that, I found my partner, Finn, who had never really grown up in a church, but her roommate had been part of UU. And she said, maybe we should go try that. She saw how I had a longing for fellowship and a longing to be part of a congregation. And so we started attending the UU church there. We found place and fellowship, and eventually we moved to Humboldt. And again, we thought, where do we want to go? So we found Huff. And as soon as we walked in the door, we felt that fellowship and the embracing arms. But the most important thing to me was that the principles of the UU stood out to me, especially the fourth one, which says, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And that was so important for me, was that we would be in a place where we could search for truth. We could search for meaning. For you see, so much of what I had believed is still a part of me. But yet I know there's so much more for me to discover. I'm not sure that the UU is the end of my journey, because I know that my journey will continue through the rest of my life, because there will be a time where I will discover more and more of the divine, understand what they are about, understand what this presence is that is all around me, that is love. And so I will continue to discover, I will continue to journey, and I will continue to move forward in discovering that love, and am grateful for the UU that has helped me along the way. Thank you so much. And I just want to pass it now to Amy Day.
Good morning, everyone. I want to say thank you to Berti for putting all this together. This has just been such a lovely, lovely thing to be a part of, just to hear. This is like my heart language here, just to hear everyone's stories. So I really, really am thankful for, yeah, you creating this, Berti, and for asking me to be a piece of this. I sat down to write a story, and it just got really, really long. And so what I ended up excavating here, this is something that hasn't really seen the light of day for over a decade. When I was 25, I was studying theater in college. I was finishing up my degree. And so what better thing to do at the age of 25 than write your life story, right? Because you have so much wisdom and experiences to pass along that the world is just dying to hear. So I penned, as my senior project for college, I penned a one-woman show that I performed exactly once, called Finding My Feet. And so it's a journey story, and very much a spiritual, but also very profane one as well. So there's a few swears in here, just a trigger warning if that's an issue. This is part of that show called Finding My Feet. I suppose the problem had something to do with rules. Not in the typical sense, mind you. I never had a problem following the rules. Well, not in the beginning. Quite the contrary. I loved rules. I adored them. I adhered to rules with a zeal usually reserved for jihadists or Republicans. Rules gave me a guidebook, a system. Do this and you will be good. Do this and you will be lovable, acceptable, presentable. Do this and you will be happy. You will assume your rightful place in the universe and all will be well. My childhood was rife with possibilities, and round each corner was another opportunity to assimilate, to learn another trick of the trade, to be all that I could be. There was the musical rule. By the age of 6, every single movie that I loved, Annie, Oliver, Pete's Dragon, they each contained a plethora of dizzyingly happy young faces, firmly ensconced in the power and wonder of song. I learned quickly that if you were going anywhere in this great big world, you were doing it singing and dancing. And it probably wouldn't hurt to be an orphan either. There was the Jesus rule. At the age of 4, my well-intentioned parents enrolled me in the kindergarten class at Chalice Christian. There, along with the standard 3 R's, I also absorbed the teachings of the 3 S's, namely sin, salvation, and the virtues of the single file line. By 4th grade, I had attended enough morning chapel services to last me a lifetime, memorized in order the names of the books of both the Old and New Testament, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and developed a bedtime repentance routine to rival the sackcloth and ashes of saints and martyrs. begging my dear Lord's forgiveness for everything I could think of, from lying to my mother about having brushed my teeth before bed to coveting my next door neighbor's New Kids on the Block tape. I wasn't quite sure what they were sending 8-year-olds to hell for these days, but I sure as HE double hockey sticks was not going to be one of those unlucky few. I'm gonna skip past that part. High school was a complete wash. Determined to make a clean break from my goody two-shoes, law-loving self, I ran astutely as fast as I could in the opposite direction. My first period algebra class turned out to be a great place to score dime bags during last night's homework review. So while Mr. Randall was turned to the board explaining the nuances of the quadratic equation, I would send a crinkled dollar bill sailing through the air to the busty blonde girl behind me. I looked down to find a saran-wrapped bag of Mexican brown dirtweed in my lap. A fourth period art class turned out to be the easiest method for turning a 7-hour school day into a 5-hour one. Not that there was ever much to do, really. Mostly just hike across the street, a group of us, perch ourselves on the edges of a beaten up old couch that sat in the middle of a field behind a liquor store. And there we'd smoke cigarettes and talk shit about the people we knew and affix our gaze to some far off point in the horizon, dreaming of what our lives would look like once we could finally shake the dust off us from this crummy hick town. College was great for a couple of reasons. First, it gave you a nice 4 to 5 year period to dick around while your parents picked up the tab, convinced that you were bettering yourself somewhere, making your way in the world. You'd wince a little as you chirped off your school schedule to them: biology, philosophy, the history of chamber music, and they'd coo their words of praise in return, when in actuality, your current schedule looked a little more like 12 units of hatha yoga or postmodern tai chi, a seminar or two in the art of microwave cooking, and a heavy elective load, which included a grueling course in bong studies. Secondly, although it felt at times a little bit like high school, the sequel, college held the winning distinction in that it included beer. You could now show up already 3 sheets to the wind in your 11 a.m. class, and no one would be the wiser. Not surprisingly, this time in my life was characterized by a lot of rather, let's say, questionable decision-making. One of these days, I knew I was going to wake up and somehow have it figured out. My life, not the sloppy, discombobulated mess that constituted this current state, but my real life, the one I was meant to inhabit, was going to appear. One of these days, the light was going to dawn at the end of my tunnel, and then I would just walk steadily towards it, and it would just be a short matter of time before I could assume my rightful place in the universe. This was my intermediate zone, my limbo, my purgatory. I reasoned I was basically just killing time until the real thing showed up. Eventually, I learned to temper all the years of self-abuse and bad habits with slightly healthier proclivities. I still slept with boys who were wrong for me, but then I met one more, another one who called me beautiful, but this time stuck around to see what else I might be. He stuck around a little longer, and I started to unravel, my layers peeling away like an onion. And the first time maybe in my life, I let another person catch a glimpse of my full self, of all the deep and secret insides. And to my surprise, he kept right on calling me beautiful, so I married him. I still managed to drink like a fish for the better part of my early 20s, just managed to become slightly less thirsty. A pack of Marlboro Reds a day eventually shrank down to a few indulgent puffs a week until I finally realized I preferred the sound of my own clear voice, ringing out lovely from my unburnt lungs, to the 15-minute pause that my weekly cancer stick afforded me. I lost weight, I gained weight, I stopped buying fashion magazines and learned to some days even like the image reflected back at me in my fickle bathroom mirror. I joined a yoga class where every girl in the room can bend like Gumby and carries no more than 4% body fat on her sylph-like frame. I go twice a week and sweat puddles into my purple sticky mat. I miss class for a month at a time and berate myself for backsliding into such an unevolved creature of uninspired habits. I take long walks down endless looping roads and get lost somewhere between the muddy, broken paths that feel like ancient riverbeds and my thoughts meandering circles in my mind. I pray, I sleep, I have good long cries over everything from my childhood to the kitchen sink. I spend hours at the piano singing bad renditions of Billie Holiday songs to myself and my week-old pile of laundry. I dance half naked in my living room with the music blaring and a smile on my face. I write bad poetry, and I take a cue from Van Morrison, that line where he tells you to be done with gurus, be your own damn guru. I go about my day and sometimes find myself in moments where there I am, all of a sudden, and it finally clicks, just like that. At one point, I made this promise to myself that I would get a tattoo, a symbol, a lasting mark on my body when I had finally figured it all out. When I felt like I had reached a point in my life where I had some handle on what it was all about. When I had finally managed to get my 2 feet pointed in the same direction, so to speak. When I felt like finally I was on the path, I had tapped the secret. I was ready to put one foot in of the other and embark upon whatever marvelous journey my life was to be. Addendum. At the age of 39, I have managed to amass 3 lasting marks on my body. One at the base of my neck, which you can only see when I lift up the hair atop my head. It is my name, roughly, in Sanskrit, Priya, or rather the meaning of my name, beloved, reminding me that no matter what befalls me in this life, or how or where I find myself, I come from love, and I will return to love. And my primary job in between is to try to live from that place of love as well. 2, the token lotus upon my wrist that reminds me that the truly rich and beautiful things in life grow, in fact, from the mess and muck of this experience. That I'm gonna have to get a little bit dirty time and time again in order to both take root, but also to come into full blossom and unfold my life's calling and purpose. And 3, upon that ubiquitous flower, 2 words, kanji, really, inked upon my skin by a friend after perusing a Japanese phrase book late one night. Feet, or rather hand and foot, right there on the spot below my left hand, reminding me, darling, look down, see, you have everything you need to keep moving in the right direction. You are, in fact, on the marvelous journey as we speak. And your task truly is to sit, stand, breathe, move, live well upon whatever piece of the path you are on. And I just want to say thank you to every single one of you who make up this beloved community, because you continue to be a huge piece of the company along that path and helping to keep that present in my heart and mind. So thank you. So I'm so glad that we get to end this portion of our time together with Sandy Lynn, sharing her ukulele song with us, so we can all join as she leads us in This Little Light of Mine.
Do we have words? Oh, it's not me live. Thank goodness. I saw that on the list and went, wait, I didn't know I was doing this. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. To lend a helping hand, to lend a helping hand. I'm gonna let it shine, to lend a helping hand. I'm gonna let it shine, to lend a helping hand. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Wherever darkness falls, wherever darkness falls, I'm gonna let it shine. Wherever darkness falls, I'm gonna let it shine. Wherever darkness falls, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light, oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Well, we've heard snippets of several spiritual journeys. By sharing our own insights, we often crack open another person's awareness. The beauty of this fellowship is that each of us are encouraged to discover our own truth without the expectation that we will all believe the same. As I look at the various faces on this Zoom call, I wonder, what is your story? Let us travel this road of individual discovery in a supportive yet challenging community based on love. And our closing words from Pema Chodron. The spiritual journey involves going beyond hope and fear, stepping into unknown territory, continually moving forward. The most important aspect of being on the spiritual path may be to just keep moving. Go now in peace and blessed be. And Sandy's going to lead us in singing.
Do we have words? Go from here in peace, go in love. Go from, oh, and we put our hands out. Go from here in peace, go in love. Go from here in peace, go in love. Go from here in peace, go in love. In love, go in peace. Shalom, shalom alaikum, blessed be, Ashe, Aho.
Please stick around for our virtual coffee hour. You'll break out rooms with about 8 people for 8 minutes just to share your story, share how you got to UU, and don't be shy. In this time, it's all about making friends and those connections wherever they may come. So thank you all so much for being here today and for sharing your stories with us. It's really been just a magical, magical experience listening to you all. So I hope you all are just as inspired as I am, because yeah, this congregation is a group of vital, rejuvenating people that all have a story and all have a special place that we can connect with. So thank you, and I'll see you guys in 8 minutes.